We took my cousin in when she lost her family, but what she decided to do to me one day was going to change the course of the rest of my life. She accused me of something so heinous that I will not even repeat it right now, but I'll tell you this. My family beat me to a pulp, and then they disowned me. Hello, people. I'm a 36 male, and I have a dilemma for everybody today. I'm feeling very conflicted, and I feel alone. I don't have anywhere else to turn, and I've been a long-time reader of this, and I just felt this was the best place to share my story. Well, I would appreciate any advice that you guys can give me or that I can get from this. There's a lot of background to this, so I have to go over some information. It's going to be a long post. First, let me tell you all about my awful cousin, Sabrina. She's the biggest piece of crap I've ever known. I know that's a harsh and cold thing to say about one's own cousin, but for Sabrina, it's the truth. Then there's Mom and Dad, which is a whole other can of worms on its own, and you know what? I'll get into that a little bit shortly. I tried to cut Sabrina some slack as I got older and learned about, psychology and what makes people do horrible things that they do to other people. But at the end of the day, I could never bring myself to forgive Sabrina, and I still hate my entire family to this day. Sure, Sabrina had a rough upbringing. Growing up, my uncle, Sabrina's dad, my dad's brother, well, it's the black sheep of the family. He was a good-for-nothing abusive jerk, and he drank and smoked all the time, and he never worked. He abused Sabrina, and Sabrina's mother wasn't much better. I understand the power that trauma can have over people, especially when they suffer abuse at such a young and impressionable age. Yet it is our responsibility as humans to work through our trauma so that we don't inflict the same pain that we endured onto the others around us. Sabrina sadly never learned this, and she became much like her parents in many, many ways. My parents were very aware of the situation regarding Sabrina's home life, so they were always quite protective of her. They tried to intervene at times, and even calling Child Protective Services on my aunt and uncle, but when the authorities arrived, Sabrina's parents were always able to weasel their way out of it. Then one day, Sabrina's parents were involved in an accident. They were running from the police after robbing a store just to fund their drug habit, and they crashed their car and they died. Sabrina was left as an orphan, which is obviously a hard time to endure even when one's parents are as foul and as rotten as Sabrina's parents were. Rather than let Sabrina be swept up into foster care system, they stepped in and adopted her. Although I've never quite known Sabrina too well despite our numerous family interactions, and despite the fact that all my interactions with Sabrina when we were small children had been quite unpleasant, I was initially excited at the prospect of having a little sister moving into our home. Sure, she was only a year younger than me, but I often got lonely as an only child and was excited to have a playmate. If only I'd known the sharp turn my life would take after this crucial moment in time, I would have begged my parents to ship Sabrina off to Siberia, because her heart is cold as the ice there. My mom and dad were not perfect parental figures themselves. They drank a lot, they were not really amazing with much money, but they worked hard to provide for me. They tried their best to give me all the support that they could, but I'd say from a young age I had overheard my mother complaining to her friends about how she had just always wanted a daughter instead of a son. She did not know I was in the next room listening in. But even as a small child, I understood those words, and you know what? Those words stung like a blade. As soon as Sabrina was in our home, Mom and Dad acted like I didn't even exist. I'd always been awkward, an introverted type of boy, and I suppose this disappointed my traditionalist parents. My dad had been the captain of the football team in high school, yet I could not even throw a ball without tripping over my shoelaces. I was clumsy, I was always awkward around girls. My dad's been a ladies' man growing up, courting everyone in town before settling on my mom. Meanwhile, I could not get a girl to like me no matter what I did. My parents always told me I need to be tougher. They told me I was a softie. So my self-esteem was already low enough, and when Sabrina showed up, it was completely shattered. Mom and Dad loved Sabrina and worshipped her even more. If she drew a picture, it would get hung on the fridge even if it looked like crap. If I drew a picture, it was given a quick glance and cast aside. Sabrina would be laughed by my parents for getting B's in class. Meanwhile, I got straight A's and they never even told me that they were proud of me. Sabrina got the best birthday parties, she got the best Christmas presents, and when Sabrina started going to school with me, oh boy, my social life simply went down the toilet. She might have been a grade below me in school, but she did everything in her power to make my life a living heck. I was an awkward nerd, and Sabrina was a pretty sociable girl who loved to run her mouth and gossip about others. She was immediately accepted into the in-group of cool kids. The jocks, the cheerleaders, these were the people who loved to torment me. Sabrina immediately took it like a fish that takes the water. Her boyfriend was the captain of the football team, of course, and he was my biggest bully. He and his jock friends would do cruel things to me like shove my head in the toilet and other humiliating, torturous events. No matter how much I tried to avoid it, I got beat up every single day. Sabrina, she never once stood up for me. Instead, she would stand by the side smirking or sometimes outright laughing. I'm not kidding when I say Sabrina was a sociopath. She's always been one. As if it was not enough to make my life at school a never-ending wave of torment and anguish, Sabrina was hell-bent on making my life at home even worse. I felt like I was living in prison, and then the torture would start all over again the next day at school, and I never got a break. The mental damage this period of my life did to me cannot be overstated. I'm irrevocably changed and damaged for life because of all the abuse that I went through. I tried telling my parents about Sabrina's friends bullying me at school, and my concerns were cast aside with derision and dismissal. They said it was just boys being boys, and my dad would always say I need to man up if I want to stop getting picked on. They would see me with black eyes and bruises, and they still had no compassion at all. Sabrina would stand by and laugh her butt off at these discussions. Aside from this, Sabrina was constantly making up lie after lie about me. She would break stuff around the house and tell my parents I was the one who did it. She would make herself cry and tell my parents I hit her. Sometimes she would make me think that I was losing my mind. She was such a good manipulator, she could almost make you wonder if you actually did the thing that she was lying about. Of course, my parents ate up her every word. I lost count of the times I was unfairly and wrongly punished for an action I have not committed. This took its toll on my psyche over time as I felt worthless. Having grown more and more depressed as time went on, my grades began to slip. They were still better than Sabrina's grades, but my parents chastised me for this transgression, adding to the depression and feeling of worthlessness. Since I had unfortunately let my grades slip, I was not able to get into my dream university. I was stuck in this little town and this little house. I had to go to a local community college, but I quickly got hard at work on an engineering degree. I wanted to be successful and just get the heck away from my horrible family. Sabrina, she had no other plans for her future. She didn't even graduate. She dropped out at the beginning of her senior year of high school, and she ended up sleeping with just about every guy in town. She starts to party all the time, going out, getting hooked on drugs. My parents continued to babysit her and make excuse after excuse. The voice, was half-hearted disapproval of Sabrina's behavior, but they were far too easy on her, enabling her, which gave her little to no incentive to change her ways. I was still living at home during this time, and Sabrina's abuse towards me was getting even worse. I mean, guys, I remember one evening. She was having a party at the house with her then boyfriend. She had about 1 million boyfriends. And all her friends were there. I was trying to study for an exam, so I asked them to please just quiet down. I was polite as polite can be, and nice in the tone of voice I chose to use, but Sabrina and her boyfriend took this innocent request personally. Sabrina told her boyfriend to, quote, kick my butt. And you know what? He sure did. He beat me. He beat me so badly that I had to call the police. I was actually taken to the hospital for my injuries, yet my parents and Sabrina told me I was the one who overreacted. They even convinced me not to press charges against this jerk. Looking back, I should have sued all of them. Then came that fateful day when I was 21 years of age, and it changed my life forever. You see, Sabrina could never handle it when she was not the center of attention. Everything had to be about her. She acted like she was the center of the actual universe, and whenever something went wrong in her personal life, she took it out on others. Sure, she was often cruel and unfair to my parents, especially for all the kind deeds they did in her favor over the years. But Sabrina's first target when anything went wrong in life was always, you guessed it, me. Sabrina had recently been dumped by yet another boyfriend. I guess this particular knuckle-dragging jerk was supposedly the one in her little warped, immature little mind. And she was particularly distraught and downtrodden with this one hit on the road. Sabrina was not exactly adept at picking out the best type of men. It certainly complicated matters even more that this boyfriend who had just dumped Sabrina happened to be the father of her child, Tyrone. She was already struggling to take good care of the young boy, and the bulk of the parental duties had fallen on me and my parents. It was such a rotten scenario, and not one that I was even happy about. Sabrina had been extra sour and extra rude as of late, despite the fact that we were all doing her a tremendous favor for absolutely nothing in return. Right before that event that would change my life forever, guys, me and Sabrina had gotten into an argument. This was a routine affair, and we were always getting into some sort of argument, and they often grew quite heated, so I thought nothing of it. But during this argument, I was tired of being belittled by Sabrina. She was telling me I was an ugly little loser. She called me pathetic and all sorts of slurs. She was spewing her venom like a hose, and I had simply had enough. I snapped, I guess you would say. I told her she was always going to be left by every man who dated her because she was good for nothing. She looked angry as heck, and I mean like angry, as I stormed off like a little baby. I thought nothing of the comment, but I guess Sabrina must have taken that one very, very personally. I was just minding my own business one day after that, when suddenly my parents literally beat down my bedroom door. I was in a state of shock and awe, demanding to know what the meaning of this sudden intrusion was. Mom and Dad, and even a few of my other family members, have all gathered in my bedroom, and I was so confused. I saw Sabrina walk in, crying. She looked inconsolable, but I could tell it was just an act. I had a horrible feeling about what was about to transpire, and my suspicions were indeed correct. Well, that's when Sabrina dropped the bombshell on me, and it hit me like a hot potato. There he is, OP, the one who assaulted me. That's right, my jaw dropped. She's accused me of something so heinous. I was shocked, and I immediately thought of my argument that we had a couple days before this. I asked her if that was the reason she was doing this, and my dad immediately stepped in and told me, quote, "You shut your mouth and quit making excuses." Well, I kept denying the accusation, and that's when the blows came. My entire family began beating me. It was brutal. It was brutal. Far worse than the countless beatings I had already experienced inside school. They told me that in no uncertain terms that I was to pack up my meager belongings and leave the premises now, and they reminded me that I should feel lucky that they were not reporting me to the authorities. I protested my innocence yet again, but they told me to shut my mouth. My entire family had just disowned me based on the word of the horrid brat Sabrina. It was the worst day of my life. I was homeless. I stuck to my guns and made a life for myself despite the abuse I've experienced at the hands of my family. I showered in the college gym. I washed my clothes at the local laundromat. I worked 2 jobs and I went to school full-time. Eventually, I saved enough money to get a place of my own. I did it all by myself, without any support from anyone except for me. Well, guys, I'm 36 now, and I have not spoken to my family since that fateful day when they beat me and disowned me. But today, I do have an encounterment of new dilemmas. I get a call from Sabrina, right? It was my parents' phone number, and I guess Sabrina must still be living with them. Even though it had been so long since we had spoken, I immediately recognized her voice and I straight up froze up. Well, even hearing her voice was a trauma for me. Sabrina spoke with a different tone of voice. However, I asked her why the heck she's calling. She asked me how I've been doing, something she's never asked me before, and then she explained that she was dying. That's right. She's dying of terminal cancer. I said nothing, absolutely nothing in response to this. She then told me that she was a single mom, and that Tyrone was 17 now and she had another son named Phil. He's 14. Then she apologized, right? She told me God was punishing her for making up the lies about me assaulting her. Wow, she asked for my forgiveness. I was stunned. Absolutely stunned. I told her I needed some time to think about this and hung up my phone. My heart was racing, and soon after the phone call, she sent me a text detailing everything that she had done and reiterating how sorry she was for all of this. She lamented the fact that her 2 sons were going to grow up without a mom, and she noted that the fact that she had been a horrible person her whole life. I still have not responded to that text message. I'm torn on how to respond. Should I forgive Sabrina? I must admit I still hate her with all of my heart. Let me know. What do you guys think I should do? What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So we do have quite a few updates for today's story, and honestly, when I was going over this story, I did not see that twist coming. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below, and if you guys are new to the channel, go ahead, click that subscribe button so you never miss another story. Here is your first update. It's a short one, but here it is. Update number 1. Hello, OP. I'm here for another update. I got a lot of good advice, and some said that I should turn the other cheek and show forgiveness, and I understand the idea that, well, hatred for another person is merely mental baggage, yet others explain that Sabrina's terminal illness was no reason to forgive her for what she has done. My family was likely still that same old toxic box of turds that they've always been. After sleeping on it, I made my decision. This might disappoint some of you, but I chose the road of revenge. I found Sabrina's Facebook page, and I was easily able to find Phil and Tyrone on her friends list. I sent them screenshots of Sabrina's confession. Then I tracked down Sabrina's ex-husband, and I sent him the screenshots. Then I went down the list and sent the confession to my parents and other relatives. I want everyone to know that Sabrina is a giant, massive turd. She's a piece of poop. And I think that she would, the world would be better off if she was just flushed down the toilet. I should be more concerned about the blowback from all this, but I just don't care. I'll keep you guys updated on exactly what happens next. Update number 2. Good afternoon, people. OP here, and oh boy, I have an update for you. Can you believe my parents dared to call me up with a load of junk today? I know, it's been 15 years since we've last spoken, but frankly, I was in no hurry to speak to my parents ever again. I should have known that they would try to get in touch with me after I dropped a bombshell on them yesterday about their little golden child, Sabrina. Much to my surprise, Mom and Dad were both quite apologetic. At first, that is. They acknowledged that it was wrong of them to have disowned me based solely on Sabrina's words without listening to my side of the story. I reminded them that they always did that, even before this incident occurred. I guess Mom and Dad expected me to be happier to hear their apology, so they ditched that angle and immediately brought up Sabrina's cancer. They told me it was wrong of me to have involved Sabrina's kid and ex-husband, and they said that I should have waited a little longer to tell the family. I was blunt and told them I didn't give a hoot. I told them both they should have considered all that before they disowned me and ruined my life. I reminded them that they conveniently left out the part about how the whole family ganged up to beat me to a bloody pulp. I was mad, I was livid. I hung up the phone, hoping to never hear from those bozos again. Update number 3. Hello, fine people. Today is a beautiful day. I got some great news, and I just wanted to drop it and share it with you. I got another phone call from my parents today. I hesitated to answer, but then I figured that they would only be calling if something was really important, so I answered the phone. My parents were in tears and sobbing. Uncontrollably, they told me Sabrina passed away this morning. Wow, it's only been 3 days since she gave me her confession of guilt, and now she's gone. I have to admit, it might sound cold, it might sound heartless to anybody reading this, but I felt nothing. I felt nothing at all at the revelation, and my parents asked me why I wasn't saying anything when I didn't respond to the news, and I told them, well, I simply don't care. They told me I'm heartless and cruel for saying such a thing about my own cousin, but I reminded my parents that they were the ones who had forsaken their only son. I heard the beginning of their protest as they began to scold me and demean me, but I was the one with the power in this said situation. I hung up the phone just as I've done the day before. Sabrina's dead. At least now she won't be around to bother me, but I feel my family does not quite get the picture. So to speak, I think they all need to be taught a lesson. I don't mean to sound cruel here, but I think more revenge is in order to truly get the point across to my rotten family. So I've decided I have something in store for my family, and I have a plan up my sleeve indeed. I will soon be back to explain the details for you. Update number 4. Hey guys, OP here. I've got another update for you all, and oh man, today was great. It all went according to plan, and I'm going to cut right to the chase and explain the details for you. So, it was not hard to find the details regarding Sabrina's funeral. I was shocked that they were having a funeral for this foul girl, considering I'm not sure who would even go. But I found the details online and made my preparation. I even rented a tuxedo so I would look sharp. I have not been invited to the funeral, so I decided to invite myself, give the little surprise to visit the old family. I wasn't sure anybody would even recognize me, considering it's been 15 years since any of those fools have last seen me. Nobody ever cared to ask how I was doing, and now it's time to show these old fools who's the boss. I show up at the funeral, and I was a bit late for the service, so it's already started. When I walk through those church doors, there was a surprisingly large crowd here today gathered up to send off the foul jerk Sabrina. Good, I thought to myself. Well, that just gave me more of an audience for the little stunt that I had planned for everybody. I walk up to the podium. I tell the preacher to get out of the way. Everybody in the crowd starts to gasp. I heard someone mutter, is that? As if they simply could not recognize me, but could not exactly place it either. Oh boy, it was time to give them another reminder. That's when I started to give my speech. I let the whole family have it. I exposed my parents to all their neglect and abuse, and I exposed Sabrina for every foul act of cruelty that she ever inflicted upon me. And I did not care if every foul act of cruelty she ever inflicted upon me was there watching. I didn't care if there was kids. They needed to know their mother was a slime ball. So I went ahead and I trashed my entire family to their faces and how they were so cruel that they turned their backs on me when Sabrina falsely accused me of abuse. I told them it was sickening how they just immediately ate up the story about me doing such a thing to my own cousin. My father stood up at this moment and told me to shut up and leave. He told me that I was ruining the entire funeral and that nobody in the whole building wanted to see me spread lies about Sabrina. Lies! Well, that's funny, I thought. They were still defending that steaming pile of garbage even after they knew the truth about her true character. Dad was even threatening to call the police if I did not leave. I'm not a violent person, but I was ready and willing to fight this old piece of junk. That's when Phil and Tyrone stood up and spoke. This whole time, nobody had asked them what they thought about this, and Phil and Tyrone confirmed everything I said about Sabrina. They said Sabrina neglected them, abused them, spent all her money on drugs and alcohol, and there was an uproar in the funeral hall, and I could tell the family was appalled. I suppose this information hit a little differently coming from Sabrina's old child, rather than from me, the black sheep of the family. I left them all grumbling and arguing amongst themselves. I had said my piece, and I was done with this. I left the funeral and went back to my apartment. Final update. Hello everyone, OP here with another final update. I just wanted to let everyone know how I could not have survived this ordeal without all of your supportive comments, as well as the great advice I received. I also want to let you all know I ended up adopting Phil and Tyrone. After growing up dealing with the stress of being raised by Sabrina and my family members, I guess they were relieved to hear me get up there and, go to the funeral and spit some cold hard facts. Anyways, the rest of the family, they just wanted nothing to do with them. And they had no place else to go after Sabrina's passing since their father was in prison. My parents also refused to take them in because, according to them, both the boys have disrespected their late mother and have brought the same to the family name, as if they belonged to some royal family. I did the right thing and adopted them. We're living far away from the rest of the family, and we're living a great life. Phil and Tyrone don't even act like their mother one bit, and I'm proud to watch them become great men. Anyways, thank you guys. So the comment section was not happy with the family. Everything that OP was trying to prove, it was so obvious that his family was toxic on top of toxic. And honestly, the time when he came and spoke up at the funeral and tried to say all the stuff that, well, what she really was, they weren't even trying to hear him, even though he had proof and evidence. And it wasn't until Phil and Tyrone stood up and said, yeah, everything he's saying is correct, and my mom is very abusive. She's doing exactly what OP said that she did. At least at the end of the story, OP realizes that Phil and Tyrone are going to grow up in that same toxic place, and he didn't want that, so he took Tyrone and Phil into his own care, and a lot of people in the comment section thought that was amazing. Let me know your thoughts about today's story, guys. My name is Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every day, so if you want to be a part of these day-to-day stories, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and of course remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.